Hello, welcome to our Facebook Live today. Hello to all of our audience and everybody joining us from near and from far. Today we are doing a Facebook Live at a different time, 9 a.m. Eastern time. So hopefully we get a lot of our European viewers, maybe viewers from Australia who are able to join us today at this session. So welcome to everyone, no matter where you're located. I see a lot of Americans nonetheless waking up early and joining us for this session. So glad to see you all here. And we're very excited to have you all with us today. We have a great session today. Oh, here I see some Australians in the crowd. Hello to Brett from Australia who's watching. We have Francis from France, Deborah from Maryland, Anne from Canada. So welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. So glad to see you all in the audience. If you're with us today, tell us if this is the first MyHeritage Facebook Live that you're joining us for, or if you have been to a few of our Facebook Lives. We'd love to hear that. We've been doing Facebook Lives for around a year here at MyHeritage, twice a week, offering you all some great sessions in genealogy, DNA, family history. And we're so glad to continue to bring them to you. So if there's something that we haven't covered yet and you'd love to hear about, just let us know, write us in the comment section, tell us about what you'd like to see at our Facebook Lives. We'd love to hear, and maybe we can get some of that fantastic content ready for you. If we haven't said so yet today, if you haven't seen our library of Facebook Lives, now's the chance as well. You can watch all of our past Facebook Lives on the MyHeritage Facebook page under the videos section. So make sure to check that out later today. And you can also rewatch today's session. So if there's anything that you've missed or you want to go back and rewatch, you can definitely go back and watch today's session after today. Oh, I see that Rita says she's been attending since the beginning. She's learned a lot in a year. So glad to hear, Rita. I'm so glad that you've been with us at our Facebook Lives for the past year. Deborah also, she says, love MyHeritage Facebook Lives. So glad to hear that, Deborah. Thank you so much for saying that. We love hosting these sessions. So we're so glad to bring this content to you. Before we get to today's session, I just want to let you know about a few things we have going on here at MyHeritage. So the first exciting thing is that this week until March 7th, we are offering free access to advanced DNA features with DNA uploads. So that means that if you have taken a DNA test on another service, another testing service that we support, you can export the DNA data from that service and upload it to MyHeritage. And you'll get access to all advanced DNA features for free this week. And if you do that this week, you'll get the access for free forever. So that's until the 7th. Definitely take advantage of that if you haven't yet. And we'll put a link to that in the comments section. So check it out. Ellen wrote, breakfast and MyHeritage, a winning combination. Love to hear that, Ellen. So that's the first thing I wanted to let you know about. The second thing is a new feature that we released this past week, and this is a feature called Deep Nostalgia, a very exciting feature that animates the faces in your family photos. So, and I see Stephanie already wrote, I am enjoying the new feature that animates the photos. So a lot of users are really enjoying this feature. It's bringing tears to a lot of our users' eyes. You can take a photo of an ancestor that you never met and run it through Deep Nostalgia, and we'll animate the face for you. And it feels as if they're in front of you, and we get to know our ancestors a little bit more. So please check it out, try it. It's very exciting. It's an interesting feature. It's being used on on some other uses as well, some statues and other paintings. But we really love seeing it being done on ancestors. When you see your ancestor animated in front of your eyes, it's really a special and exciting feeling. So definitely check it out. Besides for that, we'll be giving away a MyHeritage Complete Plan at the end of today's session. So we'd love to hear We'd love to hear about your MyHeritage experiences in the comments. And if you leave us a comment telling us about how you've used MyHeritage recently, things that you've discovered, then you may win today. In addition, if you leave a comment or question for our speakers, that'll also be an entry for today's competition. And at the end of today's session, we'll be giving away a MyHeritage Complete Plan. The Complete Plan is the best plan that we have to offer on MyHeritage, and it includes unlimited access to all of our photo tools. So that's the MyHeritage in Color, which colorizes your photos, the MyHeritage Photo Enhancer, as well as Deep Nostalgia, which I was describing earlier, our photo animation feature. It will also give you unlimited access to billions of historical records, unlimited family tree size. So the MyHeritage Complete Plan is the best plan we have to offer. One lucky winner will win one today. Please leave us some comments in the comment section, and we'll be giving that away at the end of today's show after the questions. So looking forward to that, to gifting that to one lucky winner. I'm now going to introduce our two speakers that we have today. We're very lucky to have them with us. We're very excited. So we have with us Lisa Also. She has joined us for a few Facebook Lives already. She's a freelance writer, instructor, internationally recognized lecturer. She specializes in Eastern European research and writing family history. She is the author of 11 books and hundreds of magazine articles, and she works as an online educator and writing coach through her website, Research Write Connect. That's researchwriteconnect.com. And she has also developed the Eastern European Research Certificate Program for the National Institute for Genealogical Studies. She's presented over 50 webinars for our partner site, Legacy Family Tree Webinars. And she's also, as I said, been on our Facebook Lives a few times. So really thrilled to have her with us today. In addition, we have with us Renata Kalpa, who was born in Slovakia. Her love for her family heritage is evident. She greatly appreciates all things theology, learning foreign languages, and connecting with her cousins, such as her U.S. cousin, Lisa Also. She lives in London with her husband and daughter, and now it's my pleasure to introduce both of them to us today. So let me just bring them onto the screen here. Hello, Renata. Hello, Lisa.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you both for joining us. We're really excited about today's session.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're excited to be here, aren't we, Renata?
Yeah. My smile says it all.
Fantastic. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how the two of you are related exactly, and the background behind your story.
Well, we're related, as you will see, through our grandfathers. They were brothers. We didn't know that either one really existed. We didn't know until about 2008. I received an email from Renata, and the subject line was, "Are we blood relatives?" And after a lot of correspondence, we determined, yes, we are blood relatives. And we had a chance to meet in Slovakia in 2010 in person, and then saw each other again in 2012. And recently in 2019, when I got to visit Renata in London.
Oh, fantastic. So we can't wait to hear more about how you both came to that realization and finding your shared ancestors.
Yeah, that was exciting journey. Yes. I'm a genealogist from the other side, so I was looking for descendants rather than ancestors. And then I was looking for ancestor of ancestors. So that's a bit of both sides as well.
Amazing. Should we bring up your slides?
Absolutely. Let's
go
ahead and do that. Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, great. Let me just bring them up here. So you just have to put them in presenter mode, and then we are good to go.
Does it look good?
Fantastic.
Awesome. Great. Again, so excited to be here. Happy to be back for another Facebook Live with MyHeritage. And since March is National Women's History Month, at least here in the US it is, and that's celebrated as a month for celebrating women. I thought this talk would be quite appropriate to talk about a search for a female ancestor. And I am so happy to be doing this presentation with my cousin Renata joining us from London. And this is following genealogy clues to learn great grandma's story. So what we're going to discuss in the short time we have is our journey, our complex search for a female ancestor, our great-grandmother. And we're going to stress how using collaboration and connections helped us to find out more about Borbala Manyovsky, also our great-grandmother, and how MyHeritage trees, records, and other tools have helped us on this journey. So I think those of you who have Slovak ancestors, Eastern European ancestors, you'll be especially interested in learning the intricacies of navigating Slovak records. But also, even if you're not of that ancestry, anybody searching for ancestors, especially those who are immigrants and the family is from another place in Europe, or and how to deal with those challenges of tracing back to the homeland, back to the ancestral village. So the techniques and the tips and the tools that we've used can be used no matter what type of genealogy research you are doing. So as we mentioned in the brief introduction, this all started many, many years ago, and I have been doing genealogy for 30 years. I actually started with my maternal side of the family, and I wrote a book called 3 Slovak Women. But I didn't really know much about my Alzo family, my dad's side. I knew that there were some siblings who stayed in Slovakia. My mother showed me some information and was able to give me some details about the names of the siblings that were back in Slovakia. My grandfather immigrated in 1910, but I didn't really know all that much. And so, unfortunately, I never knew my paternal grandfather. He died before I was born, and my grandmother died when I was 2. So I just had to find out through the usual steps, family interviews and whatever documents and papers that we had on hand. But in 2008, I received this email message because I wrote a blog. I have a blog called The Accidental Genealogist, and I wrote a post about searching for my paternal grandfather, looking for information because I didn't know him. And Renata wrote to me, and the subject line was, "Are we blood relatives?" And as I read through her message, she named my family members here in America, and she told me about her grandfather, Andre. And sure enough, all the details matched up. And I had this photograph of Renata's grandfather, Andre, and I sent it to her. And so we discovered that our grandfathers were brothers, and they were born many, many years apart, and that my grandfather left in 1910 and never met his brother, Andre. So they never saw each other. And so our connection was especially meaningful because of that. And so I knew that my grandfather, was the oldest of 5 children. I had the names of his siblings, Mary, Michael, Anna, and Andre. And what was interesting in genealogy, you get bits and pieces from family lore and information. And I always thought that my great-grandmother's maiden name was Mariska. And as it turns out, I found out that it actually was Manyovsky, as Renata pointed out to me once we met. And so I did some more digging, and I found some, family papers. And this is really great if you can find these little gems in your personal and family home sources. But this was an international money order that my grandfather sent back to his parents in Slovakia, and it actually had Manyovsky on there. And so I knew that, then that this was leading towards the correct spelling of the name. So in genealogy, you're rarely doing things alone, and there's always connections. And I always say no genealogist is an island. And quite interestingly, I had been doing research on my family for a long time. So I knew people in the local community where my grandfather lived in Duquesne, Pennsylvania. And I had someone from the Historical Society there send me this obituary that appeared in 1916 in the Duquesne Times Observer about this man named Nicholas Mastelak, who was murdered in Pittsburgh. He was actually there. It was an investigated death in Pittsburgh, and it's said that the remains were prepared and taken to the home of a cousin, John Alzo, in Duquesne. And what was interesting is I never even heard of this name Mastelak in my family tree, and so it says in the obituary, you can follow the clues, that his wife and 3 children were still in the old country. And at that time, they were referring to it as Austria. Of course, the Austro-Hungarian Empire was over control of Slovakia until after World War I in 1918. And so flash forward a little bit later, when I first met Renata in 2010, I learned about Nicholas Mastelak's son, the man who was murdered. One of the children back in Slovakia was Father Ivan or Jan Mastelak. He was a priest and a monk in communist Czechoslovakia and is currently in the process of beatification at the moment. And so the family narrative said that our connection was through our great-grandmother, Borbala Manyovsky's sister. So, I knew nothing. I knew, was there a sister, any siblings? I didn't have any proof at this point. So also being on MyHeritage and, having family trees and doing research, I also enlist the help of a professional researcher based in Slovakia. And he knew that I was researching the Manyovsky family based on my visit there in 2010 and also 2012. So he had found, he had a client hire him to find information on her family and to take her around Slovakia when she went to visit. And so he emailed me and said, there's this cousin that I believe you have, and she is a descendant of Andrei Manyovsky. And so I was able to connect with her, and I saw the family tree. Thankfully it's on MyHeritage. And so we did more research, and her family tree suggested that connection, most likely through Borbala Manyovsky. And so we were assuming that her grandmother and my great-grandmother were possibly sisters. And again, more connections where you never know who you're related to. If you ever play that game, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon and the separation with people that you know. But I had known the editor of the Western Pennsylvania Family History magazine in Pittsburgh. His name is Brian, and I've known him for about 20 years now. And Brian is also connected to the Manyovsky family. He is the first cousin of this other cousin that I connected with through the MyHeritage tree. But Brian always said that his family was connected to the Alzos, but he didn't know how. Well, sure enough, I had some family photographs, and Brian's aunt is in this photograph, Anne Ondo, and my grandmother is in the back standing next to the nun. And these were some other relatives, and I had this family photograph. And so we were trying to establish the connection. So I also connected through another cousin that emailed me. I had a connection. I had this family photograph that a cousin gave to me, and I had no idea who the people were, but I assumed it was my Alzo family somehow. And many, many years ago, I was contacted by a gentleman who said his mother was related to me. And sure enough, I found out that my grandfather's sister, Mary, had a daughter and came to the United States. The daughter was 2 when her husband died. Mary's husband died, and they came and they stayed with my grandparents. And then I eventually met this daughter and went to her home, and she had this same photograph in her album as I did in my photo album. And I learned that these were my great-grandparents, Jan Alzo and Borbala Manyovsky, and that Renata's grandfather, Andre, is sitting next to Borbala. And so I learned who was in the photograph. So then, you have to figure out these connections. So just a simplified family tree to show how Renata and I are connected is that, so Jan Alzo and Borbala Manyovsky were married. Jan Alzo is my grandfather. Andre Alzo is Renata's grandfather. My father, I was able to have him take a DNA test in 2000 before he passed away. And later on, I was able to have Renata's father, when I visited in 2010, also take a DNA test. And, we found that they matched. And Renata's father passed away in 2014. My father passed away in 2000. So this is our connection that we decided to explore. And in 2010, the most amazing thing happened. And that was my first trip to Slovakia. And Renata and I both believed that the stars aligned and that our great-grandfathers were somehow up there conspiring to bring us together, because Renata and her husband were going back to Slovakia to visit her parents at the same time. And so I spent 3 days with my previously unknown Alzo cousins in Slovakia and touring the cemetery. This is a picture of us at Borbala Manyovsky's grave, which was just marked with a cross there. But we met for the first time in Kuchen, where the Alzo family is from. And we, had a family reunion. This is Jan, Renata's father, and I toasting, as Slovaks do. They welcome you into their home. And then I also met this amazing woman, Helena. And Helena was the daughter of my grandfather, Jan's sister, Anna, who stayed in Slovakia. She is the other woman that you see in that photograph who was holding the young baby. And Helena remembered so much about Borbala Manyovsky, and it was just an amazing, amazing trip, learning all of the family stories. And then Renata said that when we were visiting back in 2012, when I went back to Slovakia and we spent time with Helena and her husband, Helena served this dish, and it was Renata was talking about the dish, and she said, "Oh, this dish. This was, Borbala's dish, and this was a favorite of Helena's when she was a child." And so when Borbala knew Helena was coming, she would make this special sauerkraut dish and would serve it. And so we even have a recipe that our great-grandmother made. And so Helena was explaining the significance of this as well. And then we have some other family photos. So Borbala died in 1961, and this is a picture of her funeral. And incidentally, my grandfather also died in 1961. So Borbala died in April, and my grandfather, her oldest son, Jan, died in June of 1961. And So, we always thought that was pretty interesting, that their death was only a few months apart. So we ended up trying to confirm the death, and that's what we did first. And we ended up, I was able to get these certificates from the Preshov archives, the marriage certificate of Janusz and Borbala, and the birth certificate, birth registration of my grandfather. And so my researcher, Michael Razus in Slovakia, was able to obtain these for me. And I confirmed the parents' names, Borbala Manyovsky, Janusz Aljo. And then when I obtained the marriage record, we have a marriage date, we have ages, and we have the names of their parents. So Janusz Alzo and Maria Miklos, and Andras Manyovsky, Maria Schlepak. So these certificates give us more information. So then the next step was, we need to try to determine, when Borbala was married. We have the marriage, born. We have the marriage certificate, the death record, and so we were searching and searching, and we couldn't allocate it. Based on the marriage certificate, it said she was, age 19 in 1893, so she'd been born approximately 1873. We searched Roman Catholic records, Greek Catholic records, no birth record to be found. We still have this brick wall, which I will come back to and address later on. But one of the things that we're blessed with as genealogists now is that we are able to at least do some of our initial searching online. So, for example, the Slovakia church and synagogue records, if you go on MyHeritage, there is the collection there that you can search and find records there. Now, you have to be aware that not all the records are always included in these collections. So you really need to read the descriptions and understand what you're searching for. But through a combination of MyHeritage and also these similar records on Family Search, as genealogists, you should be searching all databases because there's discrepancies in indexing, and things happen with records. So you need to always search all records in every database you can find, because you might be missing something if you only stick to one. But we were able to do quite a lot of research online. Now, that doesn't mean everything is online, but we were able to research as much as possible. And so through the search of records on MyHeritage and Family Search, we were able to at least get some information on who Borbala was. And so now I'm going to turn this over to Renata, and she will explain the search process in these church records.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi, everybody. Thank you very much, Lisa, for a lovely introduction. Before we continue our search for Borbala, I would like to show you the difference between the two photographs that Lisa showed you, the one from the funeral of Borbala in 1961. Can we have the next slide, Lisa, please? I'm not sure if...
Yeah, Lisa, I don't see the slides moving. Oh, there we go.
There we are. There we are. Sorry about the difficulties you can please have there. Yes, that's the photograph that Lisa showed you. Thank you very much again, Lisa and Esther. That's the photograph that Lisa showed you. In the left-hand corner, you can see me holding it actually on that photograph. From the family collection. That's how my search started, because there's so many photographs from America. We thought they're from America, and no one in a family were able to point out who people on those photographs were. That's how my search started for descendants first, and then I started researching my ancestors. But that photograph, as you can see, is a corner is missing. It's torn. The back of the photograph is sellotaped, and it's a very poor condition. But what MyHeritage done, the tool that MyHeritage uses, colorization tool, you can see for yourself what a great tool it is. How that photograph is brought to life. We can see people's faces. We can really see details of the photograph that, in reality, when I look at it, it's really difficult to distinguish. So I wanted to point out to that fantastic tool that MyHeritage offers. Now back to Borbala's search. This is the map of where my family, homestead of our family, Manyovsky, came from. If you located a place, when you do research yourself, when your ancestors came from, or their birthplace, and you still can't allocate the archive records, it might be worth exploring nearby places, because it is more likely that records were kept in one town that served other villages as well. For example, on this map, we can see Roman Catholic parish based in Nizny Hrusov. It's a lower circle. It's from top part of the map. I don't know if we can see it, Kucin, Kucin, that's where our family is located. Then further down, Nizhny Hrabovec, Posha, which is circled as well. Then on the west, there is Dolhe Kolchovo. And on the south, there's a village called Rakovec, and obviously Nizhny Hrusov. There were two villages as well that are diminished now, Kio and Riccio. Greek Catholic parish records, Greek Catholic that was serving more or less the same villages, but main parish office was based in Posha, which is upper circle over there. The other thing to consider is denomination. It is common to find that family was of mixed denomination, yet descendants looking for the ancestors are absolutely sure it was the only one. So let's say the Greek Catholic, there's definitely the archives we are after are definitely Greek Catholics or the other way around. But that's many times it's not true. Families would worship in both churches, maybe agreeing on one, maybe not. But within the same family, some children could be baptized in Roman Catholic Church, some in Greek Catholic Church, or in some other denomination like Lutherans, for example. And the same goes for weddings. So the entries would be then made and kept according to the denomination in which the particular service took place, rather than by family denomination. So when you know the birthplace of your ancestors, I suggest exploring any possible records available within the area, whatever denomination there would be. Now, in some cases, places do not exist anymore, or they are merged with some other town, as we can see on this map of Nizhny Hrusov. We can see the little place Riccio, where the red arrow points to. It was an independent settlement of very few houses. Now, in the past, it was a separate settlement, but now it's part of Nizhny Hrusov. And you would need to be local resident or know some history or have some historical knowledge to know that such place even existed independently, and that information you're looking for would be linked to Nizhny Hrusov. If you saw on the ship manifest, for example, Riccio, you would not find it on Google now because it would be part of Nizhny Hrusov itself. What if you know the name of the birthplace, but the name is in Hungarian or German? You did try, but simply can't work out where that place is. Collaboration is the answer here. I suggest again contacting archives or local researcher. If you do know the birthplace of your ancestors, but can't allocate the parish, I again advise contacting archive office in Slovakia, simply asking them what parish the specific place you're looking for was part of, so you know what records to browse. They're used to getting emails in English. Don't worry about if you don't speak Slovakian. Once you allocate the parish, find out where those records are kept in case you need to find or send a local researcher to dig a bit further. So you know where in Slovakia those archives are, in which archives those particular records are kept. You might want to consider engaging them from the beginning, start, in the middle, any part of the research, and it's becoming more productive as you heard throughout the story that Michal Razus, who's Lisa's contact in Slovakia, helped out so many times, and it is really worth it sometimes to just engage local researcher there, as you can see in our case of Borbala's story. Now, her birth record. We searched Roman Catholic records, Greek Catholic records, and again, I combed them, I don't know how many times. Yes, we still couldn't find her birth record anywhere. So we decided to search for her Borbala's death record. We knew that she died sometime in 1960s. Entries from that period are not available online, unfortunately. From the year 1894, by law, only state and civil records were valid. Church records were made alongside the civil ones as well, and were accepted as trustworthy source, but they were not officially legal. Bearing that in mind, a visit to Nizny Hrusov of civil records was suggested to Michal Razus. So we asked him, and thanks to him, voila, we did find Borbala's death record. It was fast and easy. And what we learned from that she died on 22nd of April, 1961. Her name on it appeared as Barbara Alžová, not Borbala, but that's we come to the names later. Her name, second name, is recorded Manyovsky. ROD there stands for Rodina, which means born. So that's usually maiden name that was included on those records. Hence, therefore, Barbara Alžová on top and then Rodina born Manyovsky underneath. We know that last place of residency was Kuchin, and we learned her date of birth, which was 20th of October, 1876. But not quite, as we learned. We did notice that had she been born in 1876, she would have been married at 16 years of age. Her marriage certificate states that she was 19 when she got married. So the question was it possible that she was married at 16? Yes, it did happen. The clue, if she was married at such an early age, would be that we would see some kind of a permission and a note written on a marriage certificate. So let's explore that. That's the original wedding entry of János Alžo and Borbala Manyovsky. The notes on age, on places, on mother, father, but there's no observation. There's no notes of her being married at young age, and some permission either of parents or some judicial permission was given. So that would indicate that more likely her age at marriage would be 19 rather than 16. I came across many age-related discrepancies, and a lot of them. So I wonder if that was the case. Personally, I'm inclined to that she was married at 19 and she was born in 1873. The other reason I believe is because number 1 and 9 are clearly written. It is worth to explore handwriting within those records and compare the entry above, entry below, the next page, and so on, the handwriting of the priest or whoever made that entry, and compare the handwriting of the digits. The number 19 on that record is clearly written. For example, if you see year 1893 on top, 1893, the digit 9, it's the same. There's no doubt that it would be 19. Just in general, digit 3 and 6, for example, are easily interchangeable in handwritten form. Those you might want to watch out. Digit 1 and 9 or 4 and 9 are very easily interchangeable because of the style of handwriting that was then, very colorful, as you can see. The death certificate that was presented as a typewriter copy, it wasn't possible to compare it with her death record original entry, which was in Nizny Hrusov. However, even if there were, her date of birth would have been recorded as admin person would heard it, maybe making a mistake, maybe not, we don't know. Perhaps a family member who informed the office of her death didn't know her exact date of birth either, so it just recalculated, assumed, and just would 1876 there. So with this in mind, and no birth record found so far, we agreed that Borbala's date of birth would be 20th of October, 1873. So where to next? Since father and mother's name are known from Borbala's wedding entry, we can see that in the middle column on here as well. We decided to check for parents' wedding next. That's the entry of the original wedding entry, which we did find. Andras, the date states 25th of July, 1860. The surname looks like Manyovsky. The woman he got married to was Maria Szajan. And that posed the question, why not Schlepak? We know that Borbala's mother on wedding entries is clearly stated as Maria Schlepak, not Szajan. Was Szajan and Schlepak the same woman, and one of the name was alias name? Or did Maria Szajan died and father remarried, having Borbala with the second wife called Schlepak? There was a story in our family about second marriage, but I believe to be related more to the Auger family branch. I wasn't sure about this either. So we decided back to Borbala's birth record. Maybe we missed it, try and find again. Roman Catholic records, Greek Catholic records, but they didn't find anything at that point. Lisa asked Michal to check the physical records as well in Slovakia in archives, but he actually didn't find anything there. So who was Borbala's mother? I considered possible steps. Checking the marriage records of the father Andras with possibility of remarrying. Checking the possible death entries for the wedded wife as per certificate, Maria Szajan. And checking birth entries between year 1860 and 1876, where father of any children, doesn't matter which wife would be there or mother, but the father would feature as Andras Manyovsky. I decided to start with death records, and fair enough, I did find a death entry of Maria Szajan. It stated 10th of April, 1878, named Szajan, corresponding with the marriage entry from 1860. So that confirmed that Andras was married so far only once. At least that was established, but that posed no question of Borbala's mother. Was Borbala's mother called Szajan, not Schlepak? Schlepak being a priest-written mistake. Was it the same woman and one of the surnames was alias name? Or was Borbala's mother another woman having a legitimate child? I mean, in those times, it was rather unlikely to have illegitimate child. A single mother's yes, but not children out of wedlock once parents were married. But in all fairness, we need to consider that we didn't have Borbala's birth records. It was still nowhere to be found. And legitimacy of the birth could not be confirmed nor dismissed. So we needed to take that into consideration as well. Unlikely as it seemed, but we wanted to explore that as well. Now, in general, if you come to such possibility within your search, how to look for legitimacy? Within Eastern European records, the most reliable information would be a birth entry. There is a specific column stating legitimacy of the child. This is the most reliable one. The second indication, but only indication that cannot be taken as a confirmation, is that only mother's name appears next to a child's name and legitimacy column is not filled out. As it happened, I found two other entries of Maria Szajan's children. Only her name was recorded, not father's, but legitimacy was stating as legitimate children. Also, entries were within the time frame of her marriage to Andras, so clearly Andras was the father. So, back to Borbala. No birth record. Question of the mother still on. Let's establish facts, what we know. Marriage entries, we found for sure now that marriage certificate confirmed Father Andras was married to Maria Szajan from 25th of July 1860 to 10th of April 1878 within the time frame of Borbala's birth. Death entries, Maria Szajan death in 1878 after Borbala was born, so that would presume that Borbala's mother was the one. Where to go next? Which way to go really depends on what is proven up to that point, what leads you have and what direction you want to take. In Borbala's case, I decided to widen the search and continue searching in two directions. First, I want you to check birth entries of possible siblings within the time frame of 1860, date of the wedding, to Maria Szajan's death in 1878. So back to search again. And sure enough, I did find 6 children of Andras and Maria, some entries stating mother as Maria Szajan and some as Maria Schlepak. At this point, I was absolutely sure that she was the same woman. Yay! We found Borbala's mother here. And amongst the siblings, I found Borbala's sister, which was a connection to Father Mastilak. So yay again, some results, definitely. Secondly, I wanted to explore possibility of Andras remarrying. Now, in general, the second marriage would take place rather fast, especially if father was left with young children, as it happened in Andras's case. Rather than new wife, a new mother was sought. Someone need to help out with children and around the household. So that was very likely that Andras would marry second time, and if so, would marry rather soon. With this in mind, I looked for the second marriage, and there we are. 5 months later, on 30th of September 1878, Andras and married Maria Mali. The highlighted box I would like you to pay attention to now. The left box has Manyovsky Andras on top, and then Mali Maria on the left-hand side. I wonder if you could see the name on the right-hand side in the other box, which seems to be the same, Mali Maria and Mali Maria. Is it possible that there were 2 different women, cousins perhaps? That's what my idea was. Why not? Or could witness had been auntie and bride would be younger girl, or maybe they were the same age, but one was auntie with the same name, Mari Maria, and bride's name was Mari Maria as well. Or it could be that the bride's name was completely different and the priest made a mistake. We don't know. By now, I learned that the names are tricky to rely upon in the records. However, difficulties to accept, one must accept that. And I would like to show you the demonstration on the next slide. This slide is unrelated to our Borbala search. I happened to find it randomly, but I find it absolutely perfect example of how records cannot be relied upon. If you look at it closer, the groom's name on the left says Sabo Mihaly, where the arrow points, Sabo Mihaly. On the right is parents' names. That's where the parents' name were recorded. It says Sabo Mihaly, mother Danko Anna, but her surname appears as Danko because mother's surnames were recorded by the maiden names, not the husband's names. If you look at the bride's name, it is the same as her mother-in-law, Danko Anna. Then it is crossed out and Mato Maria is written instead. The bride's parents on the right are Mato Janos and mother Sabados Anna. Sabados is hard to read, her maiden surname again. This is not a singular case. We are quite lucky that this name was crossed out and priest corrected, or whoever made entry corrected themselves. I found an entry of a child in which mother's name was recorded instead of a godmother, and different name, presumably godmother was stated as a mother, and names were what it looked like being switched. Parents of that child had many birth entries of the other children recorded before and after that child was born. So I was absolutely sure that that was a mistake. So that tells us that the record can be written literally black on white, and yet it cannot be correct, might not be correct. It just shows how open-minded one must be when we go through the searches. So, taking all this into considerations, possible mistake, possible discrepancies, alias's name, maybe age differences, I started to search for possible children of Andras and his second wife, Maria Mali. It didn't come to me as a surprise that when I did find the first child, the mother's name was stated as Maria Mijanin. There we are again. Which one is it, Mijanin or Mali? Either the wedding entry was not correctly recorded, or possibly one of the names was alias. As I mentioned before, one has to be open-minded when names are concerned. To my delight, I found 5 children's entries of Andras and second wife Maria. Her surname alternated between Mijanin and Michanin as mother. And there goes another yay in order, as we found a connection to our cousins in USA. One of the children, Maria, was their grandmother and our Borbala's half-sister. Now, time to celebrate. If you come to so many finds in the search, halfway through, whatever you find, I've really advised to give yourself a tap on the back, because it's not easy to go through the record, especially with so many discrepancies being there. So we certainly feel positively about the research so far, and let's summarize what we found so far. In this case, Borbala's birth parents, father's both marriages entries, that Borbala came from a family of at least 7 siblings and 5 half-siblings. We found connection to priest, Father Jan or Ivan Mastilak. We found out that one of the half-siblings, Maria, was the grandmother of our cousins in America. Our cousin in America had a family tree, and the name corresponded with whatever names of the sister our cousin had. The only discrepancy was the Bertha and Borbala. So is Bertha and Borbala, that was on our cousin's family tree, the same woman, the same sister? It says Bertha also on her family tree, so it strongly indicates that Borbala and Bertha would be the same woman. Within children entries, we found none of the girls that were called Bertha, and the only birth record that we didn't find was still missing was Borbala's. So is Bertha and Borbala the same? Borbala name is Hungarian version of Borbala, and that's what I would like to say, that the names. I'm not joking when I say that the whole conference could be held on names in Slovakia, surnames or first names. Borbala could be called Borka, Bora, Bara, Barbarka, Barborka, or any other. That's we're talking about one name still. It did cross my mind that Bertha could have been another version of Borbala, although Bertha was more or less referred to Alberta, was short for Alberta or Albertha. I believe that was from German. Maybe it could have been family nickname, we don't know. So I tried to picture family dynamics. Borbala was 10 years old when Maria, grandmother of our cousins in America, was born. It was a custom that children help around the house from young age, at about 11, 12, or whenever they were physically able to. They would work as adults, attending to any other work in the field or doing washing, cooking, attending to animals. Younger kids would be expected to help around with babies and small children, either feeding them, playing with them, watching over them while mom was doing cooking also, and some housework. So it wouldn't surprise me if Borbala was watching over younger kids. At the time of baby Maria's birth, Borbala's eldest sister just married and moved out. Another sister was 19, brother 13, then it was Borbala, age 10, half-sister 4 years old, younger brother, half-brother died shortly after birth, and then it was baby Maria. So we have 3 little girls playing together. Mom gave birth to another girl a year and a half later, and to another girl 3 years after that. So basically, when we look at that household, we see father, we see teenage brother growing with a house full of women. So where that Bertha comes from? I think that with younger kids around, probably Maria, or maybe one of other younger sisters, simply couldn't pronounce Borbala's name correctly. And whatever short version of her name she was called could have been Bora, Borka, Barka perhaps. Eventually that nickname stuck, and Bertha was Bertha and was used within the family. So Slovak women and Slovak names, right? Now, decide in your search when you come to point like, so what you would like to explore first, next, if you want to explore further, and where would you like to go? In our case, I decided to check birth records of parents Andras and Maria. Based on marriage entry, I presume that Andras was born around 1836, 1837. Back to search, check him names, again, record after record, name after name. Unfortunately, I have not been able to allocate his birth record so far. But voila, another yay. I found the birth entry of what I presume was his older sister. meaning I most likely found parents of Andras, which would be our great-great-grandparents, Andras Manyovsky, and according to the entry, Maria Ferenco. To my delight, I did find a birth entry of Maria Szajan, 9th of February 1835. Name of her father appears as Paulus Szajan. Maria Tkach was her mother. This confirmed the official family surname, Szajan, meaning that as per Borbala's wedding entry, mother's name Schlepak must have been her alias name. Once you explore possible leads, and there might be few, what I suggest next is to build a picture, do a cross-check, and see what those records tell you about the family, rather than birth, death, marriages, what you can learn from records that you find and put the dots together. I will double check the dates and names. Is there a possible connection within another people you are researching? What records information tell us about persons and family life? For example, I noticed that when Maria Szajan, mother, died on 10th of April 1878, one of the daughters from the first marriage, Maria, it would have been actually her 14th birthday when her mother died. I mean, the day in that family. Now, who was the person to take over once mother or father died? And it made a difference slightly. Was it eldest son who took over? If a father passed away and mother was left with children, if there was any son, were there more siblings there, what age they were they due to military service, or someone who was just recently married would move back to help mother, or if mother died, was father left with girls to look after younger siblings? How old were they? Who would basically step into those duties of parents of father or mother? So those things are very good to consider and build a family picture. Did children get married shortly after the parents' death? Who looked after them, and so on? The family moved. Maybe there was birth of another child, and you can see different village. Have they moved? What could be the reason for moving? If there's any reason, you might learn there were floods around and they had to move from the local history. So that building a picture, I suggest to go over and try to find family dynamics. Children's godparents and wedding witnesses give us additional information too. Let us have a look at Andras's second wedding entry again here. In the middle column, I don't know if you can see, but in the middle column, there is a name of the witness that appears. It says Polak Mihari. It's on the top one. We know that family link to Father Ivan Mastilak was through Polak's family. If you have a look at the next slide, got a connection through Polak's family. We know that father of Ivan's mom was Anna. If you have a little red box, his mom is called Anna. She was a daughter of Mihari Polak, so her surname would be daughter Anna Polak, and married Nicholas Mastilak. Her mom was married, we presume, in 1883. Her mom Anna in the yellow box was a first daughter of Andras Mastilak and Maria Szajan from the first marriage. Andras' second wedding was in 1878. His daughter's wedding was 1883. Witness on Andras' wedding was again Polak Michal, which we think that those two men in the green box are related. I would like to point out to the differences in our era and era when people lived before. Now, with the style of lifestyle we have now, it usually happens that young people meet and then they introduce young boy to the family. Now, in those times, it didn't happen that mom, dad, look who I brought for dinner. This is the girl I want to marry. That absolutely didn't happen that way. The families were living together in a community. They would be attending church together, working in the fields together. They would know each other, children's characters and so on. And some families will be closer to each other than other, more friendly or so. So the possible marriages were formed before the children even sometimes match together. So that was the difference between how it starts the other way around, those marriages. So we presume that from dates of the marriages, 1878 and 1883, people that family knew each other before Mihaly Younger Senior, Junior, and Anna married. The parents' approval was needed. Remember the blessing, and that was a very important part. So, for example, if parents decided that children were a good match, usually a Sunday afternoon would be pointed out, and the future groom's parents would come to visit with groom, ask for permission, talking, and then the would-be bride would be shoo out of the room, probably listening through the window what they were talking about. Will they permit to marry us or not? And once those are over, the blessing was given, and that's how the proposal would have been made. So from these dates as well, and from the connection of godparents or witnesses, we can see whether those families knew each other before and how close they were. I would like you to see the, excuse me, I'd like to point attention to the red box again. How did we learn about connection between Ivan Mastilak, who is on the bottom line, his mother, Anna Polak, it says daughter Anna in a pink box, and Nicholas Mastilak. We actually came across, Lisa showed the obituary from Nicholas Mastilak, and we come across to ship manifest of Anna Mastilak, the daughter that was in a pink box in the middle. The manifest itself, I would like to point out first, technicality here, that it comes in 2 pages, but MyHeritage merged the image together into one, which is much easier to read. That's another feature that MyHeritage offers. Anna's name appears as Mikroshne Mastilak, as you can see. That's her father's, that's her husband's name. I presume that she didn't understand and custom. I don't know, is there anyone speaking Slovakian English, someone translating? Perhaps she must have been tired from the journey. It was usually 3 weeks journey, maybe scared, young. She gave her name as Mikroshne Mastilak, or maybe she gave her right name, I'm sorry again. But it was recorded as Mikroshne Mastilak. Her nationality is stated as Hungary. Probably she meant to say where she was traveling from again. Maybe did not understand the questions properly. You will notice on the next slide, her nationality is written as Slovak. So it was common custom to refer to Slovak as Hungarian or Austrians, due to Slovakia being at that time part of Austria-Hungarian monarchy. If you recall her husband's Miklos obituary, it was quite a small, but I'm sure you can read it perhaps afterwards. You watch this on repeat if you wish so. The Miklos obituary refers to him as Austrian again. Now, father mentioned was Mihaly Polak and husband Miklos Mastilak. The age that appears here is 21. We learned that she is born presumably around 1885, 1886, maybe. We can see her name again, Mastilak Miklošne in the first box. Nationality Slovak instead of place of origin Hungary, as it appeared on the transcript of the manifest. Husband Mastilak Miklos, underneath address, perhaps we presume his address of the residence. And then in the second box, there is Polak Mihaly, which was stated as her father, and very hard to read. It says Also Jartyan. It's ALSOGYARTYAN. It's really hard to read. But I'd like to pause here for a second. That place of origin, reminding you here what we talk about the maps and the names of birthplaces. Also Jartyan, I apologize here to Hungarians because I don't speak Hungarian, so hopefully I do pronounce it correctly. That is the name of Nizny Hrusov. Another name was used, also Hrabovec, a version of Hrabovec is the name. That was used and commonly known for 500 years. Due to modernization around 1900s, the name also Jartyan was used instead, and only for about 20 years. So one has to have a knowledge of what the place was referred to. Again, if you come to such gross difficulty and you say Ajo Hraboc, but also Jatan doesn't ring the bell, even though it wouldn't be the same village, I advise again to contact archives or some researcher in such case. Now back to Poleg Mihaly on this slide. Was that Poleg Mihaly father of Ivan Mastilak, son of Andras's Manyovsky's witness on his wedding certificate? It is very likely. We know that family were connected, it is very likely, and we found that connection through the manifest and through the wedding entry of Andras Manyovsky. Now, Anna, mother-in-law Maslik Anna, returned back to Slovakia in 1911. She left America. There's no records of immigrants leaving at that time. Only a manifest of her arrival is available. She returned back to her parents in Nizny Hrusov. Excuse me. The picture of Nizny Hrusov is on the right, featuring a bust of her son, Father Ivan Mastilak. Anna returned with her 2 children while pregnant with Ivan. Husband Nicholas or Miklos stayed in America. Plan was most likely to earn enough money and support his family, perhaps to build some homestead, maybe new home, buy more fields or such, and basically to support his family and children for the future. His unfortunate death in 1916 meant he had never seen his son Ivan. Ivan himself was a very bright and kind child. In 1922, when he was only 11, nearby village Nizny Hrusov welcomed monks for a week. They had some kind of a celebration there. They were from congregation of Redemptorists. He was absolutely fascinated and decided to join them when he could. His life journey was as eventful as the start of his life. He was ordained priest and a member of the Redemptorist congregation. He studied in Prague and Rome. He spoke perfect English, Greek, French, and German, and translated many religious texts into Slovakian. One very famous one in Slovakia is Teresa of Child of Jesus, Story of My Soul. I think it's translated into English. During communism in 1950, as many members of clergy at that time, he was persecuted and imprisoned for 15 years. His mother, Anna, passed away in 1964 while he was in prison. It was debated, but he wasn't allowed to attend her funeral after all, fully aware that he was under constant watch. But that didn't stop him to secretly train new priests at his lodgings. They would visit him as a doctor. He was doctor of theology. So going to see a doctor, and at his lodging, he was living with the family. The priest was always visit that family, and they sneaked up upstairs to see and talk to Ivan. He many times encouraged faith in many ordinary people. He passed away on 18th of September 1989, only a few months before the revolution, so he unfortunately didn't see the end of communism. His resting place, pictured on the left, is in Michalovce, amongst other members of the congregation. He was much loved by many. Another picture of Borbala that family owns is she's there in her late 80s here, with her sons Michal on the right and my granddad Andrei on the left. Father Ivan was great advocate of Virgin Mary and the Rosary. He would have visited Borbala and the family when he could. My father actually remembered his visit after he was released from prison. My father must have been maybe 15, 16 years old then. We know so far of 3 photographs picturing Borbala, and on all of them, she is holding a rosemary. Anytime she took a picture, she was holding a rosemary. From family narrative, we know that Janusz and Borbala were very religious persons. Now, what else can be learned from the records? Many discrepancies appear on the details. The first wedding entry in 1860 says that Andras was 23 years old, so presumably born in 1836, 1837. Second wedding entry we saw before says that he was 37 years old when he married second wife, Maria Mali. But calculations suggest he was at least 41 or 42 years when married again. The middle arrow, I would like you to see it. It's quite hard to read, and I hope again I will read it correctly in Latin. It says cum consensus, something I presume that goes for royal or regina judici. Such note appears quite often at wedding entries next to grooms, and this confirms that groom completed their compulsory military training and were permitted to marry. Length of training varied. That was dependent whether it was Austro-Hungarian monarchy before Hungarian kingdom. That sort of slightly differed. But in general, it was usually 3 years long for men of 19, 20 years of age. Many traditional songs actually start from that military duty. They refer to civil war, the war, sorrow, and love. And many of the songs you will hear that talk about sweethearts who young men hoped would wait for them until they returned from military service. But happy some of them waited, but unhappy with some of them got married in the meantime. Well, underneath that to know is still the same column, is still on the second arrow. It says orphanati. This confirms family narrative that Andras and his siblings were orphans. We believe that due to cholera outbreak in 1849, we did not see wasn't able to allocate the records, death records of Andras' parents, so that we presume that was that cholera outbreak. He must have been about 12 years old. His older brother Janos about 17, and we are not sure about the age of another brother and other siblings. Children at that time were non-dependent from age 14. So when they're 14, they were referred to as adults, as independent from their parents. It seems that siblings were forced to relocate and likely at some point lived in poor house in Košice. We talk about, 1849. The charitable organization were not as organized as they are now. Picture them being hungry about 40 miles from Rakovec to Košice on foot, and family narrative says that one brother unfortunately died on the way. On the right-hand side, at the third arrow, there is a age of Maria Szajan. She got married at 24 years old. I would like you to keep that in mind when we go to the next slide. We know that she was born on 9th of February 1835, and as per previous slide, married on 25th of July 1860, age 24. She was actually, if you calculated, 25 years old when she got married. That's little discrepancy, but again, another discrepancy that there is. Another slide, her death entry, tells us about her birth date, 9th February 1835. But in a highlighted column, date of her death, not 10th of April 1878. In the middle part, I hope you can see it says 35 EV, that stands for years, so 35 of age. It is incorrect again, because she was actually 43 years old when she died. When you look at those age, 35, 78, that's clearly 43 years old. So there we are. Those discrepancies were very often, and I would like you to keep those in mind when you look for your ancestors. Now, what we learned so far: Borbala's parents. We know that she was 4.5 years old when she lost her mother. We know who her stepmother was and when her father remarried. We know who her siblings and half-siblings were. We know that some of them immigrated to USA. We learn of Borbala's father, sister, her auntie Anna, and their brother, Uncle Janos Manyovsky. Search still continues, and oh boy, there's a mystery there. We think there is going to be a great story there. We learned of her cousins, Janos's 13 children. Unfortunately, it seems that 6 of them died when they were very young. Due to cholera in 1873, Janos lost 2 sons on the same day, 1 year old and 9 years old. I mean, those are the numbers. But if you picture family and you have that threat of death, and suddenly 2 of your children die on the same day, it must have been tragic. We know that Janos settled down in the next village, and families were very close together, supporting each other. We know that Borbala's father, Andrei, uncle Janos, and their siblings were themselves orphaned at a young age. And finally, we established family link to father Ivan and connection with our USA cousins, living relatives. And that's what we consider the greatest find, living relatives. Isn't that great? Now, finally, there is a woman that we didn't know, and knew very little of at the beginning. What we have learned in the meantime about her. What the story, right? There's behind her. Now, thanks to my father, who preserved the old family documents, I have found the deeds with Borbala's signature on them from years 904, 1907, and 1911. That's the one from 1911 there. As it turns out, she probably could not write nor read, as many people in that generation, though, even though the Sunday school was compulsory, it took many, many years for that law to really spread and really comply for everybody, and children being taught. As you can see, her signature, the arrow points to a cross there. On this document, she put a cross next to her name, as was the custom if people were illiterate. The same cross, I hope you can see it properly, is next to the name of Alijo Mihaly above. He signed his name in the same fashion. Someone signed the name. It's actually corresponding with the whole document's administrator's handwriting, and he just put the cross there. So, amazing woman, right? How that woman, what she endured, what she has gone through. And thanks to Helena, thanks to all my father's stories and so on, me being very privileged, because I actually lived for a short while in a house where Borbala lived, and it was her house and Janos's house that they lived in that I was born into. I think that she's absolutely amazing woman. We think that she was amazing cook, according to Helena, and the dish. She must have been a very good grandmother, because Helena said every time she knew I'm going to visit, she made sure, doesn't matter what kind of season it was, whether it was Christmas or Easter, she knew that's my dish, and she would get it specifically ready for me. So it must have been a fantastic grandmother as well. And also sister. We know that from the family letters from USA and from many correspondence photographs that kept arriving from America, from her two children, Janos and Mary, that she must have been greatly missed. Now, talking about mothers, I'd like to have a little detour and say happy birthday to my mum, who is going to 68 today. So happy birthday, mum. Všetko najlepšie. And talking about names, her name is Emilia, and we call her Milka. So there we are, names again. And back to Lisa.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me. Hi, everyone. I just want to thank Renata for doing such an amazing job explaining that search. This research quest was a labor of love, as you can see. I call Renata Sherlock Holmes because she took such time and care to search for all these records and read them. And the search hasn't stopped. I also want to mention that this has been one of the gifts of COVID, being able to spend time on my family history and work with Renata in collaboration. And just so that we work together, Zoomed weekly, and put our heads together to solve this mystery of our great grandmother. So if you have brick walls, please do not give up. A brick wall is really just a research challenge. Do not let them stop you. This took us 10 years since I first met Renata. So using MyHeritage trees, DNA, collaboration, using a professional researcher, old photos, documents, letters, all have gone to help us solve this mystery. And it takes time. So to summarize, did we find Borbala's birth entry? No, not yet. We're still looking. We believe we know when she was born. I can't stress enough the importance of collaboration and that you have to keep looking, and we will not stop our search. Also, we want to thank our two cousins in the USA, our researcher in Slovakia, Michael Razus, and our late cousin Helena, Renata's late father Jan, and of course, the two of us putting our heads together. As I mentioned, genealogy is not a solitary hobby, and no genealogist is an island. Finally, I would just like to say that I run a Fearless Females blogging prompt series on my blog, The Accidental Genealogist, and that is happening for the month of March. There's a prompt for each day to write a small story about one of your female ancestors. And so I hope that this presentation has inspired you to do that. If you would like more information, have questions, feel free to contact us through my website, lisaalzo.com. You may use the contact button at the top. Also, Renata is available to do translations for Slovak records, especially Zemplin dialect. And she can also do some translations of photographs if you have things written on the back of photographs. Please send any messages. You can hire her by contacting me through my website. And Esther, we're going to turn it back over to you. Thank you, everyone, for indulging us the extra time to tell this important story.
Thank you so much to both of you, and we really appreciate hearing that very, very interesting story. And we have a few comments of people who really enjoyed it. Will said, "Thank you for this informative talk about an area of the world that I'm not so familiar with." And June says, "Amazing research journey. Thank you both." So really a lot of very, very interesting comments here from users who learned so much. I think this is an area of genealogy that maybe not everyone is familiar with, and really, really very fascinating. So thank you both. We just have a couple short questions. Let's see, we have from Barbara, how do you figure out which records, what records in Europe apply to which geographic region?
Renata, do you want to take that?
Yeah, okay. That would depend really as a place of birth. I would start with that. And if I would suspect that if they were before 1918, that would be either in German or Hungarian. So I would contact either archives or local researcher or anyone in Slovakia, and to point it out to them, because if they're more likely in Hungarian, you would need to know what that Hungarian place represents in Slovakia nowadays, and they were completely different. And it could be 300 kilometers apart where you thought that sometimes villages shared the same Hungarian name, and they were of 3 different places within Slovakia. So I would start with engaging any researcher just for that information. Once you know Slovakian name, then you can start researching local villages and local archives, whether it be in town or whether it be just little villages over there.
Okay, great. Don asks, do you find that for many marriages and military records, ages were lied about in order to get married too young or to enter the military too young?
Renata, did you see that in your research?
I would think I haven't seen men being married at a very young age. So far that I saw were definitely 23, and it was a custom that they would wait when they were 18, 19s, as I said, those sweetheart songs. They would date a girl for 2 or 3 years, and they knew they were due to military service. They would not get married. They would just not, in case they were killed, they would not want to make a young girl widow before she got married. And for various reasons, they just didn't. And those cum consensus judici, it presumes that perhaps at some times they were not even permitted to marry unless they fulfilled that military duty towards the emporium or state or king or whatever there was at certain time. So I would not presume that they lied or they were married before the age of 23, or at least they might have been 21, but at least they must have completed military duties first, and then they would marry. So I didn't come across any young age related. adulated the military service. I would like to point one more thing here that relates to Andras Manyovsky, that the boys could have entered voluntary military service from 18, and it was possible to do from 17 as an exception. And that happened many times during orphanages when in Andras Manyovsky case, we believe that Janos, his brother, he went to Košice because he wanted to enter military service voluntary from 17, which was permitted at that time, in order to earn a living, so he would not starve in the street. So in those cases, perhaps, but not in order to get married.
Okay, thank you. We'll just take one last question before we have our giveaway. So this question is from Catherine, and she says, it's more of a general question. She asks, what are the best ways to discover a family's place of origin if that is not already known to the family?
Okay, I can take this. So you really want to scour all available records, on this side of the ocean. So, from when the person immigrated into the US or Canada, you want to look for naturalization petitions and church records over here if they practice a faith. I've noticed a lot that civil death records and other types of records often don't have specific information. They may have Austria or Hungary or something like that, and that doesn't help you. But if they were buried from a church, a lot of times the priest or the minister rabbi might have made a notation in the columns or would have included the exact place, the village place of birth. Sometimes you can find information on passenger list records, later records, as we showed you with that example in our presentation, but sometimes those places are not always accurate. Census records usually just give country, so you've got to dig deep into things like naturalization petitions. If you can get the original SS5, the Social Security application, if that applies to your family, records where the immigrant would have been stating their place of birth. That's what you have to really do a deep dive to find that out. And if you can't find it for your ancestor, don't be afraid to apply that fan club principle, the friends, associates, neighbors, looking at the relatives, looking at witnesses on marriages and godparents on baptisms and so forth, witnesses on naturalization petitions. So you would want to expand your search to the collateral lines and the cluster research as well.
Thank you. This is very, very helpful. And I see just so many comments here about how interesting and helpful this presentation was. So many tools and tips throughout your research, I think that everyone here picked up on. So really amazing. Thank you so much.
And I just point out one more thing. I apologize if I mispronounce something in English because it is my second language. But because of English, I'm able to contact with Lisa. The connection between our families did not happen because no one spoke English. We are third generation. And first generation, which immigrated, did not even speak Slovakian. They spoke Zemplín. Or Shari, they spoke local dialects. So literally, within translation, that Slovakian doesn't even come into context. It's literally English or Zemplín altogether. So thank goodness for both the revolution and me learning English, Elisa speaking English. There we are. So I do apologize if I mispronounced something. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. And I love hearing one of my favorite parts of your presentation. Lisa was showing how you were welcomed into the family.
Always.
Always.
Slovakian wedding. What's the best Slovakian wedding? At least the one that lasts 3 days plus.
Amazing, amazing, and just so nice to see how you could not know each other for so much of your lives, and then be introduced to each other, and it's like meeting family.
Absolutely.
So that's exactly the feeling that everyone is looking for, and that we all hope to make with breaking down all of our brick walls. So really, really incredible to see, and lovely, really, to hear about the whole story.
And I just want to say, Esther, that MyHeritage, you have such amazing databases and amazing technology, and being able to enhance those photos has really helped, the research process. And also, I didn't mention it, but we did use the deep nostalgia. I did use it on the faces of our great-grandparents, and that it is pretty amazing.
It is.
Oh, fantastic. So you'll have to include it in the next presentation.
Yep.
Amazing, amazing. So lovely to hear. Thank you. So now we will be giving one lucky winner a MyHeritage Complete plan. And as I said, it's the best plan we have to offer on MyHeritage. And you'll have unlimited access to our photo tools. So very, very exciting. Sorry. And today's winner is Dana Conway. Congratulations, Dana. Oh, I see she just wrote, actually. Great presentation.
Thank you.
And Dana wrote us, she said, sorry. Something a little stuck in my throat. She said, I have so enjoyed MyHeritage researching, has been very easy. The transcriptions are excellent. I was struggling with an image of a manifest for my great-grandfather and his daughter arriving in the USA in 1914, and with the help of MyHeritage, I was able to document it. Thank you, MyHeritage. So really amazing. Great to hear, Dana. Thank you for letting us know, and congratulations. We'll be in touch with you through private message to claim your prize. Thank you so much, Lisa and Renata, again, for joining us and sharing your journey. Just so exciting to hear about.
Thank you. And please write about your female ancestors. If I leave you with nothing else, document their lives. It's very important.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And have a great day, everybody.
Thank you very much from me as well. Thank you very much for having me.
Our pleasure. And we hope to see you all again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.